No. No. The Movie Club movies. The Movie Club movies has had a small holiday vacation. We're back. I've got a bunch of topics to talk about. Soon enough, we're going to cover some really fun movies over a series of episodes. I want to remind everybody, Instagram, Threads, YouTube, smash it. Leave us a message about your replies to the questions and topics I'm bringing up and we're bringing up as a group as we continue to explore different good, bad movies. The Movie Club movies. Hashtag us at TMCMS. Another week. Here we are. I want to explain something that's also has become a recent temporary issue. The streamers. And while you haven't heard from the Movie Club movies in a while, the movies I've been choosing, but I was starting my playlist to talk more about it in these episodes in the near future. As I started to try to watch these, it just became not possible to watch some of these on a budget, or you can imagine some folks out there have just one streaming choice. I don't know which one that is for you, but we know there's a couple popular ones, and we know there's a couple that have a lot more movies or a lot more archaic movies than others. But I know you guys also know about full-on free streamers. I've come to a dead end on the movies I tried to watch and discuss, and it completely slowed me down. Unfortunately, I'm dealing with a budget, so I can only go so far on these, and I just can't have every single app every month. I can't do that. So we're back. Obviously is an issue. It's also, I just feel like, is anybody else noticing this? Scorsese mentioned that movie theaters and moviegoers are turning to movies as amusement park rides because they're just so big and blockbuster and full of trends and the people you know, action setups and violent setups and explosion setups. In a movie where, you know, five guys bust ghosts with practical setups and some minimal digital effects is not always the case. That was just, there are so many good examples, right? Night of the Comet. I don't, you know, and then we also covered like Captain Ron, but even Captain Ron is like one location, you know, and then they go to a set, and maybe give me two locations because it starts in cold Chicago at one office building, and it's all practical. It's less and less like that for the big sci-fi and comic book action movies. I say comic book, but what about comedy movies? Comedy movies are the movies that are in islands. They're also in, you know, a digital set. They're on a physical set. I mentioned islands because I was trying to say to myself, sort of these action adventure movies that have come out in the sort of comedy realm, and they are going to like an exotic location. But I know that they're also starting, and there's a big group of these. They're starting in offices. They're starting significant other lovers' houses and things like this, in cars and Ubers and things like this. So it's just, it is a ride. It is. There's a whole lot of a budget going into these movies, whereas the 80s and 90s. There was a lot of budget, and maybe a lot of that budget was going to cocaine, but there was a lot of budget going into practical effects. I'm looking at Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right here on my screen. Not the perfect movie, but there's a lot of really interesting stuff with, you know, the stuff we're covering. It's been on my mind to talk about it. I would definitely say if you met me in person and met me after a showing or something, I would want to ask you about your streamers. And I know that sounds crazy, but I just had, you know, we just kind of had some holiday weekends over here, some big sports breaks. So there's been some time either after some of these big events or also instead. My family doesn't meet up on the holiday, so sort of like on the holiday, I had a lot of time to watch a lot of movies. Wanting to do my homework, I wasn't able to find everything, and even the research and the entertainment I get just from entertainment culture, movie culture, film culture creators, stuff, comedians and what they're doing in Los Angeles, the stuff that I'm just thinking about in peripheral supplemental content to help me understand what I enjoy and maybe don't know enough about. Even that I came up short on. All in all, of course, there's enough movies out there. I found other minds full of gems and things like this, but not enough, because it definitely slowed me down, and here we are back. So let me segue out of that. Definitely leave in the comments the movies recently you've been able to watch. Maybe you didn't think you were going to get a hold of something and you did, and I mean movie wise. And also maybe it was something new and recent. It really came at you unexpected. Hopefully not always bad, but if you want to tell us about some bad movies, that's cool. And if you really want to tell us about some good movies that maybe others thought were bad, that's what I love to hear about. Was Venom, Let There Be Carnage really that great? In your opinion, let me know, because I found it to be unwatchable, and I'm a huge fan of that, and I couldn't watch that movie. Now, I definitely am having problems with that type of movie, but I couldn't watch that movie, and I like that character and wanted to see it up there on the big screen anyways. Segueing out of that, so much more to talk about. What I'm seeing is that there's a podcast, what I call a podcast bump. And I noticed this earlier with like a podcast like Comedy Bang Bang, and people like Nick Kroll would actually call it out. And of course, a lot of jokes, but there's some seriousness, like their shows or their appearances or their content afterwards. It receives positive support and more views or likes or whatever is valuable to their team, and they might call that a bump. And I think that post 2020, during 2020's pandemic, and post 2020 pandemic continuing, someone like me experienced, but I also do think that there is some realisticness to this, which is a popular, obscure piece of content or movie or show or music. Well, let's stick to movies, is much more, I guess, vulnerable or susceptible to being picked up by a major streamer or the big companies. And I'll keep calling it streamer. Just I like to talk to myself about, talk on the podcast about a much more general sense of what I'm talking about, because we can all bring in our own info and perspective. So I can't possibly bring it so tight except from my perspective. But I'm inclusive and welcoming to thoughts on creative content. I do see that there is a podcast bump. So I think that some of my more easy example is How Did This Get Made? A podcast that I always come back to is We Hate Movies. They do We Love Movies. They are definitely much more popular than when I first listened to them. And I do see that even that podcast, not so much starring mainstream talent, is still causing a podcast bump. And then I was trying to segue quickly to How Did This Get Made? It's definitely doing that. And they are aware of that and all of this. Action Boys is another podcast that I personally get into, and I've said before, it's up to you if you want to listen to them. So I'm circling back, but again, just explaining that, have you noticed that something you might have been told by a friend or see on an interview in your own research and exploration of entertainment that you enjoy? Are you finding that it's off of streamers, even though 48 hours before you searched it, you had just seen it? Had that happen, like something like The Chappelle Show or Get Out will be on the streamer, and then I'll spend an afternoon at work and come back and say, I think I'm going to eat my mac and cheese tonight with a da-da-da-da, whatever that is. And you go to look it up, and it's not there, and it's like, what happened? So that was a lot of my experience during the holiday break here. The jump in movie trailers and movie marketing. Gone are the days of cropped trailers with an old man who's got a voice from smoking cigars and cigarettes in bookie parlors for 30 years. Action, movie, trailer voice. Get up. Missiles next weekend. Smith is Tank Guard. Tank Guard. He came from the wilderness out of nowhere. Outside. Shut up, my dear. Get the bunnies. Run. Carrots. The gems are in my pocket. Your wallet? No. My pocket? Your wallet. His wallet on Friday opens 1992's Tank Guard. This weekend opens in select theaters.
Please do not bring any gum and throw it on the floor and then sit on it and your seat becomes gummy. And also, don't drip all the Coca-Cola or Dr. Pepper on the floor. It makes it sticky. And then when people walk around, it sticks on their feet. And you just hear this.
This Wednesday. Buy tickets. Plan to come this Friday. The movie advertising is coming down to just really bland ways of explaining the entirety of the film and showing all the scenes, all the climactic scenes, all the action scenes, all the sort of, I guess you could say Easter eggs now, but all the sort of gems that you're just like, oh, that person's in this one, or oh, the cashier is this guy, or whatever your thing is. But we all know, and I'm just seeing all these ads. I was listening to like Unspooled talk about how musicals are not getting advertised as musicals. Even the trailer doesn't present the musical aspects of the movie, and how that's peculiar. I even noticed that they're editing out cigarettes and joints in the biopic for Bob Marley. The trailer that's the commercial I keep seeing during basketball. It looks like he's having a joyous time with his kids in their car as he's driving on a sunny road, and he's holding his hand on the steering wheel or something. We just see it propped up as he's talking and smiling, and he's got fingers clasped as if he's holding a joint, or that's how you would smoke while you drive. I don't know what's going on, but washing out a lot of stuff in content anymore. It's making me laugh for the greater good of humanity and the greater good of Hollywood. And that's crazy. I just said that statement, but that statement is in the context of, creative principles and people's credits for their efforts, and also the output and the censorship of that output. This podcast and the movie club movies is open enough to hear out, zany movies like Tank Girl and zany performances from actors like Nick Cage in Vampire's Kiss, and zany ideas put on screen by creatives, no matter how horrific, like Street Trash or RoboCop. And we've covered that in the Movie Club Movies movie night showings. Of course, those are our points of reference as we continue on our exploration in the podcast. Hashtag TMCMS. Smash that message button. The Movie Club Movie. Tonight's feature. Just the Way You Are. 1984. The Movie Club Movies loves to highlight the different, the weird, the obscure, the off-center, the archaic. Especially the archaic. I love VHS era movies. That is definitely a lot of where the Movie Club Movies started from. I had mentioned a great friend who had a great, modest but powerful electric VHS collection. He was sharing with me as we hung out. I would see another movie, and that added to my already imaginative, spontaneous movie conversations I was having at the restaurant bar I worked at with friends of the show. Movie Club Movie Original, All Stars, Emily and Elle. My friend John G's collection really influenced me. It was just a snowflake in the snowball that we all go through in our interests throughout life. Brought me to podcasts. I already mentioned we're brewing at this time. We hate movies. We're starting out. They were covering some of the silly movies I remembered from my childhood. Sleepover movies and movies we'd rent as a family on the weekend. Pizza, popcorn. You know the drill. The movie club movies. Keeping it trill. What about ski movies? The goofy, risque, snow ski culture in 90s, 80s, 90s, of course, movies. Dean Cameron, movie club movies, classic character actor, was in a movie called Ski School. There's an adjacent movie called Ski Patrol. Name after name is going to come out of these movies besides Dean Cameron. I have so much to say. We did a conversation about Side Out, which is volleyball, and we talked about how that stemmed from a popularity inside of Top Gun, and we continue that conversation here where a trend of movies that was going to make some fun money on VHS culture and VHS rental hit the youthful market, hit the trending active market. Movies like Perfect, the illustrated aerobics of the time in the mid 80s, coming out of there with roller skating, ice skating, skiing, snowboarding, bike riding, BMXing. Ski movies were really popular, and I didn't really see a bunch as a kid. I just was very aware of it, and I think it's because I had a Four Seasons childhood, and winters would be very snowy at times. Eventually, even before meeting some of my friends, just having my own VHS, definitely finding ski movies was a part of an initial, allow me to say, crate digging, right? Just like finding it, renting it, or whatever. I also know, similar to Key and Peele having a sketch about a Gremlins sequel, playing along with the Gremlins movie is just so fun. Always Sunny in Philadelphia cast did just a pairing to ski movies like I'm talking about with Dean Cameron and with a few other aspects of those movies, especially Ski School. And it was really fun. I do suggest it. I feel like I'm talking to followers that may have already seen this because some of this stuff is so aged. It's like, I feel like a fresh look at things because we get to relive retro stuff and rebooting things, but I think it's a healthy reboot of things, and I feel like it's kind of made its wave, almost like a Conan O'Brien sketch or something. Like, we've all seen this stuff, right? Like, I will definitely keep suggesting. I just don't want to over-explain some of these things we've all seen. And I do want to get to freshness of discovering the things we're discovering, but the style of these 90s was very colorful. You're going to find that it's like brand forward, so all of the ski brands and active brands that go along with the equipment that's being used, and all of it's being used. It's not like they're like, whoa, this Italiano ski whatever equipment. No, it's just on them. You know, Dean Cameron is wearing what is it, Gorani turtlenecks or mock necks or whatever, which would be under, you know, several layers as you're skiing and things like that. And it's worth calling out because it's fun and dated, but at the same time, it's like the cool part about it is it's like branding, but you actually would wear that. It's not like eating giant Domino's pizza when you're at like elevator during an action movie. It's like, no, you wouldn't even be focused on pizza, like, or in a cold soda, but you would wear this brand of ski equipment. So that's a part of it. And then I don't want to get too heavy, hot and heavy, but you know, babes, women that are supposed to be very attractive. I think I could even use the word eye candy, and I don't want to make us all cringe, but that is a part of this, and I actually want to maybe make an illustrated, add a key word here that might help, like sort of like hair metal sort of culture. But after that, but it's just kind of like this girl's at the pool. We're skiing and checking out that girl. And sometimes that girl is the millionaire wanting to buy a part of the mountain. And we've got win the race to gather all the money. But would it be better if I threw out some titles? We did Ski School, and these you can just assume that all of these have sequels to make even more money in the VHS realm. Follow along: Ski School, Ski School 2, Ski Patrol 2, Aspen Extreme. And then I want to throw out that Better Off Dead is out there, and this one is really one of my favorite movies, so I don't want to overdo it. I would love to have a full ep just on that movie, but it's very ski centric. And let me throw a new one out there. Thanks to Turner Classic Movies, I found out about a movie, 1984's Just the Way You Are. I'll give you a moment if you want to Google it. Come back to me now. It is a real swell movie. In this movie, Just the Way You Are, it is covering a character. It's covering a character who is single. I think is in between guys, relationships, I should say. Her name is Susan. A little bit further into the intro of the movie, we see that she has a fiance to be. At the same time, it's up to her, or they're both choosing whether or not they want to be together. But she is sort of single. She's played by KRISTY McNichol, an actress that I'm unfamiliar with, except that she looks familiar. This movie contains ski culture, but I would love to break it down and go through, because it doesn't start off as a ski movie. I'm just going to throw it out there because it's kind of a fun movie. I thought, who would play this in 1998 or 2008? Ben Stiller. And this is a female role, and I just cast it with a male, but I'm casting it to explain maybe the texture this character is, maybe the texture she's supposed to be, or the potential. I don't want to criticize it. I kind of rolled with it when I watched it, that the actress is playing very plain. And I don't find Ben Stiller to be plain. I do think that he can play a average American man, of his age range. But she is single and I think supposed to be full of comedic beats. This movie doesn't start off full on in the ski culture, and I think that's why it makes for a really interesting watch, and it made for a really fun surprise as a movie club movie. And back to my point about, I think that she could be a Ben Stiller type character, is because they paint her character to be a single woman. It looks like single in the city. We know that she is a professional creative, and that she is working on what looks like a ballet, opera, some sort of performance event, or a part of a performance organization like ballet or performing arts. And there are most likely a lot of people that know a lot more than I do about this type of thing. I know more about 2D arts, so to say, and fine art as like hand to paper and craft. But she is a flutist, and we don't get, because it's kind of it's an older movie in the style it's shot. It's barely sort of shot with the attitude and youthfulness of like a Ghostbusters, or I should say the electricity of like a Ghostbusters, or even like Married to the Mob, Breakin', Streets of Fire, Repo Man, Into the Night, Desperately Seeking Susan, Fletch, of course Hot Dog, released the same year, Gremlins, Beverly Hills Cop, Karate Kid, and Purple Rain, Night of the Comet. All these I think have this youthful edge to them. And even though she's a young single, this is definitely a different time, a different era, even for the filming of this. So we're looking at a single woman who's probably in her mid to late 20s, which is considerably comparably to how a 40-year-old would be nowadays, because it's kind of maybe you should be committed to something for your future, and that should have happened in your early 20s. By your early 30s, you should be moving on to like step 2 of that for the time of like 60s to 80s, and we're in the 84. You can imagine this is like filmed in 83, written in 1963, definitely by an aged person. So this is a part of the cultural context that even the movie Ghostbusters or Night of the Comet are where they're coming from, is the experience of those who are creating it and the times surrounding it, most likely. And she starts off the comedy, and so I'm kind of backtracking, but I wanted to do this just in highlight form. There's a lot to say once you start saying a few things, but that she is single and looks to be single in the city, and that there is sort of a brushstroke of comedy, including her acting, and maybe even a lot of actors in this movie, or the way that it was written. There is a lot of monotone, and there is a lot of, I don't know, mundane, emotional expressiveness, where it is the comedy might be lost in the delivery of things. And it's, even though these people are kind and sweet, and maybe her character is a little bit maybe inexperienced, I don't believe that the actor is hitting the mark on comedy. But at the start of and that's all to say at the start of the movie, that there are these brushstrokes of comedy similar to a Ben Stiller character, similar to a Ben Stiller rom-com. By that, I'm saying that she has these like moments of bad luck or everyday misfortune, which I love because I experienced these things, and I also enjoy Seinfeld and the Larry David experience on the lighter side of things, not the most unpleasant things. She's sort of avoiding things, and she's also sort of noticing how people are acting or reacting to her presence, because subtly, again, I say that it's just a interesting way to shoot a movie in the 80s. It is really subtle, but she has, I don't know, she has something gone on with, I think, her left leg, left ankle. She wears a brace in the ankle area. It just extends like a sock above her calf. And I don't know what injury this is. And I just, let me just not skim by this or scan by this. I just didn't want to make this all about every detail in this movie. I'm trying to celebrate you seeing this movie, or that I happened upon this movie. Maybe she has an element, or she could be labeled with a disability, so to say, because the movie wants to sort of focus that is something she's dealing with, and the character is showing she's dealing with this. Okay, fair enough. I'm just trying to explain in terms that I can even reach to, because there's even heavier things. KRISTY McNichol plays Susan, who's the star character of this movie, and during the making of this movie, she was personally dealing with making her personal decisions. Again, it's worth checking in on. I was unaware of all this, so I'm not trying to skim past. I would like to scan past, because it's not what I'm trying to celebrate or show as far as the energy I read from this movie, and I did not know the backstory of those involved in making this movie. Similar to Don't Worry Darling. Just happened upon that movie, and I'm happening upon this movie. And of course, they have some similar pitfalls happening in the background of the movie making. Here I am highlighting it. So I would like to move forward, because there is some really fun stuff going on. And within all these pitfalls, I am an audience member going, wow, you kind of brightened my day with some creative choices. I don't know how silly of the time this movie was. So she is not happy with when she's meeting people. They may adjust to seeing that she has this brace on her leg. We see that in a couple scenes, and like I said, some of them have a brushstroke of comedy. She is a charming character. I believe that this actress is charming as craft actress. However, she's going through something, and for patches of this movie, there's a real dry delivery. Reading into this movie, it's explained why she may have had some difficulties with the script and things, but there is a script involved and we're following along with that. It is kind of an interesting, quirky thing, and it is again of the time, and I find that charming and intriguing. And I have a podcast and a group of friends that share some of that interest, and this movie is not going to let us down. So she is deciding, after a spontaneous meeting outside of her apartment, she decides to go on her own holiday. And here's where I get a crossroads. She's a part of something that has to do with performance related. She's the flutist. It looks like she's friends with the ballerina, and they may have been scheduled to go to tour, and she is positive about that. But as she plans that holiday, that trip, she plans a holiday for herself to find some romance, and I think even to find herself and her own independence, possibly. That's the way I'm reading this movie. It begins to get interesting. I didn't really know where this movie was going. I actually didn't know if I was going to be turning it off. I didn't know if we were about to get into something that was like skin exploitation. Like, I didn't know if we were about to get into she's about to bed hop with, I don't know, ski instructors. And I did not read into that there was about to be much more painting of radical style, and there is some sexiness, and what should we say, there's some flamboyant. Maybe we ride the berm of objectifying men and women. There just seems to be some sexiness and some sexy style, as if we've just walked into Oz. We're back. I want to mention, we're back. I want to mention that we begin this ride, her personal journey to Oz, by going to a pub with her performer friend. I think that there is one of many, but maybe the second guy who's been creeping on her this movie. I'm sorry, but not sorry. This is just where these movies make me laugh out loud, is because I grew up with these movies. I'm seeing how awful just the average guy can be in an 80s movie, especially we are in 84. So we are just in the meat of the 80s and VHS content being put out. We're supposed to believe this guy is a sweet guy, just an average guy, but he has been lurking on her from the bar afar. And it looks like a Cheers bar, okay? Lots of wood grain. He approaches her, and I think they share a cab or what have you. We are now at her apartment. He notices that she has the brace, and I don't think he cares. She begins to get into her place and notices that the elevator is out. And this is like not too far in the movie, and I'm already thinking like, is this an awful movie? Because she kind of begins to talk out loud as her dilemma comes. And I'm so sorry that this is dialogue for a woman. It is more like monologue, right? Because she's just like, oh, the elevator's out. Damn. And he's standing right there. It's almost like Friends in the way that they're standing in this vestibule elevator loading area for her apartment. I'm sure there's listeners that have apartments just like this. And he's still got the door open. He's seemingly trying to be a gentleman, although he's very aggressive. Well, I shouldn't say very aggressive. He's being aggressive and like continuing to stay there. Hey, can I help you more? But at the same time, as an audience member, we might be misinterpreting him, because we're finding out she kind of does need some help. But allow me just to say that to spark maybe where this movie gains some edge, some tooth. Because does she need help? She could walk up these stairs alone by herself. She's not paralyzed. She just has a brace on one of her lower legs, and we've seen her walk all over the place. And she's a concert flutist, so that's nothing to sneeze at. There's interviews and commuting involved in getting to where she's at. She's very beautiful and seems together. So let me just continue to paint that she's a confident person. And he just says, do you need help getting up the stairs? And she continues like, I think I'll be all right. The stairs have just been painted. And that's supposed to be sort of like probably a caution or a warning sign to us. And we're supposed to see her confidently make her way up those stairs. But the stairs are painted white and there's signs, and you feel like you're, if not in the Big Bang Theory or Friends, you're in Three's Company or some shot in a sitcom, in a stationary set of stairs, and he's negotiating, but he is maintaining some space. But he's like, I could help out. She's like, I'm okay. And she is kind of eyeing it now with a little bit of fear. I think she's dressed nice enough that she doesn't want things ruined. And she notices like, this is just SOL, shit out of luck. I don't like these interactions. She's obviously maybe had a bad week. We've seen in about 5 minutes of film. He does, I don't know, maybe by 2020 standard, an ungentlemanlike thing, but at the time they're trying to tell you maybe a little bit more of a gentleman. Maybe there's a 50-50 of unwanted attention from a handsome guy who's not that bad, or unwanted attention, period, because he did creep her out at the bar, afar. But he just comes up behind her and swiftly picks her up as if they're, married or whatever, and he's gonna walk across the threshold. He safely, swiftly, softly picks her up. It seems sweet. She's kind of like with it, just get me to my door. He does. He gets paint on his conveniently worn overcoat and does his best to just gentlemanly say good night and good luck. As he leaves, the elevator door opens that's next to her apartment. And it's, again, I'm painting that with some comedy, some, forgive me, but a Ben Stiller, I almost said broco. What is that? A Ben Stiller rom-com. That's the way I see some of that. So the edits are, again, it's crazy. It's funky the way things are edited. And we go to another moment in her life and she's practicing flute and we're continuing. It's funny that she's got a connection to the operator for her phone line. So there's a message service. I guess that would be because she's a traveling concert performer. So she could be in Europe for a weekend or two and have messages coming in. But I also think that these are things I'm supposed to pick up on that single women would have at the time. Have you ever seen a movie where the female character is staying in an apartment and they're not allowed to have men over? Period, or I don't know what's going on. I've kind of just put these things together since I was like an 8-year-old. And yeah, and I think single people, single women would live at home also. So I think a single woman out there in the world in the early 80s, and this is definitely changing. I mean, Oprah is alive and well, 84. We're about to hear more about Oprah soon. So things are coming around where women are speaking out and doing what they're doing. And obviously, this actress is amongst that wave. I hope I'm coming across with the sensitivity I'm intending of, this is very interesting stuff, but it is personal life. And I am not criticizing performance or personal performance. I'm just interested that this creativeness all was going on as an emotional person myself. So anyway, we see her doing that. She's connected to the operator, and I think there is in this scene we're talking to a female operator, but there's a male operator at some point who's Alex from Last Starfighter, and there seems to be some flirtation, and now here again, some tooth to this movie. A gorillagram comes to the door, and there is a person dressed in a gorilla costume. The action boys were calling out that there aren't enough gorilla costumes being used in movies nowadays. I mentioned Pottersville has sort of a gorilla-y costume, and that's recent, but this is 1984, a gorillagram. And let me just say, if I saw a gorillagram the way I saw it in this movie, I would not, maybe that's why they're not around anymore. It doesn't matter what's going on, but this is a suit with furry, man-shaped body, and then a plastic, terribly made looking gorilla face. And I would just equal it to a clown. A clown sometimes with the saturated color scares me, and I would say This is saturated bad costume. Saturated bad costume. Saturated like darkness at the door, and they are like going to give you a message. A clown is supposed to be joyous and cheerful, but I feel like when a clown is forced on us, we're also terrified. I don't like the gorillagram. She gets the message. It's actually the guy who is an operator. This guy has an interaction, or this gorilla has an interaction with her. He doesn't show that he's the operator. He's there, I think, to check out this babe that keeps calling or whatever. That's already gross. The gorillagram is gross. He's saying like, you know, have a good day, gorillagram. And I think she wants to tip him. And she says, oh, hold on just a moment. She's not impressed, but she is like, hold on just a moment. And she goes and he sees her brace. The brace is like the second character in this movie, unfortunately. And she comes back and he's like, it's okay, and he leaves. So I think A, he's unattractive, okay? That's the ugly thing of this, all right? But B, he leaves what? Because he just doesn't even want her tip? Or it is just such, it's not real, it's bogus. So it's like, well, I don't even need a tip. I just wanted to, I don't know. I don't even know. What was he there for? I'm frightened already. Okay. Well, again, we're not even into the rad parts yet. Okay, but quickly they go to, remember the guy from the bar that got paint on his overcoat? Well, he is at the next showing she's playing the flute at. And he sends her flowers. I don't know, they arrange a date. They make it back to her place. They are making out. She's confident, and it's really funny because they have this sound effect for her brace, and it's like shing, ding, 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 ding. It's very wild. I was like, is that in my room? So I turned the mute on and I had to rewind because I was like, what's going on here? Is there something in my room? It's that he's got a ring on and he keeps wanting to caress her leg and hits his ring to the brace. Fast forward, I'm sorry. Welcome to the movie club movies. To rewind, because along the way, I was just trying to speed through this. We do see that she's in like a, I don't know, maybe more focused or serious relationship with the guy from the TV show Wings. He seems like a well-to-do, well-educated, I think people say WASP. So I think she's questioning it. I have a scene I want to explain about that contains him. Okay, so there's a really funny scene that caught my attention almost first off. It's an early scene in the movie. It is Susan and her well-to-do boyfriend, played by Tim Daly, Frank. They're at some sort of business work party. Frank has just kind of talked to the crowd of minglers there. It's just at someone's house, mansion or something. They quickly team up. Susan and Frank want to sit on the sofa and chat. Susan notices that the big boss, he also kind of talked a little bit and met with Frank for a moment. The big boss's pants zipper is down. We don't really see it. Susan is mentioning it to her man friend number one, Frank. She says, Frank, do you think you want to mention it to him? Frank cools the situation and avoids it, and we see that the big boss man has now sat with them, and the crowd of onlookers is kind of staring. I guess they're supposed to be staring at his unzipped pants, or that he's a big boss man. It's unclear. But she and him are eyeing each other, Frank and Susan, as Susan makes a distracting remark and goes for the zipper. We don't see it. We just hear it. Zip? Are you kidding me? I want to circle back. Tim Daly is among a group of guys that all kind of look alike. But get this, I'm kind of getting their names mixed up. Tim Daly was in Wings. Lance Guest was in The Last Starfighter. David Naughton was in American Werewolf in London and is not in this movie, but he is in Hot Dog, which is about really screwy skiing. As I guess Susan zips up his boss, everybody's cheerful, and I guess the boss is sort of embarrassed and thankful to Susan, and we all sort of chuckle, but there is a mixed sort of agreement that, hey, she's a different type of gal. Tim Daly playing Frank, his attitude is like, yeah, she surprised me there. I think what I pulled from it in this 1980s instant coffee commercial that we're sort of in, it's a very like toned down camera look and it's very soft, but Susan is sort of playing this like observant, confident character, and I think that she is going to notice things, and it's like, hey, yeah, A, I don't have to behave, as we're going to see throughout this movie later, and B, I'm going to voice my opinion or my observation on things. And I think we see a few more instances of that throughout the movie also. Also just want to say, so we know of this guy, and she's like, do I really want to commit to this guy? Is he everything I want in a partner? Sorry, fast forward, we're back. They just went on the bar guy just went on a date with her. The guy from Wings walks in to, I don't know, their shared house, I guess. I don't know. So she's just like, oh, I can explain. So I think that they are on a pause, and she goes into the city with her friend. We see two women riding a city bus, a real city bus, with real city shots. We are beginning our hero's journey. Is heroine a better word? Can she be hero's journey also? To what? Sweden for a ski holiday. She's just kind of like, I gotta get away from all this. Even with her makeout session, she didn't feel super comfortable being with the guy who was making his ring hit her brace. And I think as an audience, we're uncomfortable with her. So she goes to play. They want to see her. And this is like a moment where we're supposed to see her shine. And I think that she's a little bit unsure of herself. And I think with all that we've seen in, let's say, like a week or 2 weeks that they've just shown us now in like 16 minutes of this movie, I think that we're just supposed to be like irritated also. Like, yeah, what's up with people? I'm just trying to live, and that's tough. I'm trying to get to the next level, and that's tough. Ask Ice-T. So let me get out of here. And now I'm here. I'm supposed to be on my own. I'm gonna hold my own on the stage, and I don't know. Like, maybe I don't even want to do this. Maybe I don't want people to see this. So we see her, kind of see a poster. We now see her at her own recital. She's going through the motions. The front row sees that she's got a brace, and she's walking confidently, but the brace makes her walk with a sort of shuffle. She does her thing. Her sheet music falls off her stand. So I know I called that comedy earlier, but I'm just trying to highlight, do you see this sort of like, oh, you know, everything happens to me. Just when it rains, it pours. And if you're not feeling good, like, oh, maybe I need a nose job. Or, oh, I got a bad hair day. I got a bad haircut. The coloring was bad. Somebody on Saturday Night Live had an allergic reaction to makeup. Somebody from Brooklyn Nine-Nine also shared a similar story. So it's like, you know, in order for me to get to the stage, I had to go get stitches. I get it. It's tough. And she was out there expressing herself. In some silent thought, she goes to her doctor and gives him the idea, can we put a cast on my brace? She actually sees a retail store with a ski display, and I don't know, the sort of legs on this person, I don't know if the person had a cast. There are some moments where other people have casts in this movie, which is comical. The mannequin has a cast or something, and she's like, oh, okay. So she tells the doctor, can we get a cast on this brace? Internally, she's like, so no one will see my brace, they'll just think I have a cast. And it's like, okay, again, this movie's a gem, because what a topic to think about, to write about. She takes an Alpine train to her destination. While she was thinking about the cast, people are actually shuffling against her on the street, so she's kind of annoyed by that. She's, again, now outside of the train that she took. She's got her cast on, and there is a beautiful couple behind her that we'll actually see again in the movie. But they're like, excuse me, miss, could you hustle up, please? And she's like, oh, pardon me. And again, it's like, what the hell are these interactions? But our actress, our character is like, okay. those people are perfect douchebags. This is going just as planned. I want people to be jerks to me like they are to everybody else. I mean, sing it, sister. I'm with you. I would love to find out, are you getting cut off in a 35-mile-an-hour zone like I do, and then the person throws garbage at your car and you're like, I'm doing 35, like, why are you mad at me? You know, like, are these moments happening to others? A lot of people get cut off in traffic. Sometimes when you put papers on a podium, one or two may slip off. A lot of my friends, we've lived in a big city, people brush up against you, or people don't brush up against you. So if you're on the other side of that stick, sometimes it over and over again, it becomes very irritating. And our difficulties as adults trying to secure success in love and in career. Although my criticism is support, saying she handles her flute job like a champ. I don't think that that's ever in question in this movie, except maybe taking a vacation. I think she has to mention to her agent or something like, I got the flu or something. But anyway, she makes it to the hotel and lodgings, and she sort of has to stand up for herself to maintain the budget she's got. It seems like they pair her with, it's hard to tell, another single female or someone who's just saying like, well, my boyfriend's in Canada or something's going on here. Her boyfriend might be cheating on her, but she's with somebody, but they seem like gal pals the whole time. I never really pulled if she had a committed partner or not. People are inviting other people to parties. So she goes to a party with this new roommate, and here is where it all begins. And I'm so sorry it's taken me this long. I don't know, how far into the movie are we? We're 40 minutes into the movie when she is at this party, and the way I see it, the 90s ski style movie gets its major reference point of origin. Here she meets a, I don't know, tycoon or a company CEO. He runs a company that makes skis, and he's being very charming. And she is, she wears a bow tie and like a, I think, bolo style tie at one point. Here we have like a glittery bow tie. So it's just interesting, like, that's like of the time, but in the background there are colorful balloons, and there are like sort of like, I don't know, local concert or patio style lighting. It's like lighting as if somebody's on stage, but at the same time it's sort of just glaring. You know, it's sort of a sweaty, we're in a lodge, by the way. We are at a ski resort of some sort. This is sort of the meeting room, and there's lots of wood, but all these colors and this sweaty lighting is happening. A lot of warmth. She's talking to sort of a blonde redheaded dude, and he's going to start introducing her to the rest of the world here, because she's quickly introduced to sort of a ski star, maybe a ski stud.
Steve is going to win the men's slalom for us tomorrow.
I use his skis. If I win, it's up. If I lose, I'm on my own. Yeah, the course was icy as hell today. I almost fell a couple times.
You're too tense. Try dancing. We'll lose and you out. I see you, Vince.
Bye.
In the meantime, enjoy yourself.
So, how about it? Do you want to dance?
Me? No, I can't. I mean, dance.
Because you're gifted.
Yeah.
It's not stopping her. Come on. It'd be great.
I don't have.
In this conversation, she notices that this corporate guy has like a limp or something, and he says, you know, he was sort of injured, and she's like, oh, I was injured too. She sees somebody dancing with a cast, and this ski stud is like, yeah, would you like to take a dance? And, you know, she's doing the shy girl, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. And almost like Annie Potts in Corvette Summer, she's saying no, and our male character is saying yes. He picks her up and says, come on to the dance floor. I am sort of really tuning in at this moment because, yeah, the color has changed. Things have changed in this movie. Gosh, I want to say a few things, but I have to say this. I'm tuning in because I was noticing this movie 40 minutes ago, and that this character I would not have thought belonged in this scene, lodge, or whatever. You know, like, wait, what's going on? So it's this interesting, like, I'm reacting to the art where I'm not necessarily reading or hearing it. But it's like that I am noticing that, yeah, she seems to be out of place, maybe not cool, and all of a sudden she's in a place of all places with a lot of cool, confident, beaming people, and even like a guy who owns a company, a ski company. So I would think a lot of people want to be in the same room, and she's there. I also read that she's a confident person. She's got a better, she makes more money than me. She drives a better car, you know, so I was just already like, she's pretty cool, but there's no defense for how people might be rude to her because of this brace. It is wild that, like, I wasn't hearing every line, you know, I wasn't really paying attention to this movie, like I keep stating, Night of the Comet, you know, I've seen that movie. But like this movie, I was just like, no, what's this? Wait, what? She took a plane, and now she's where? You know, it's just like, she's wearing a pink skirt, and we're getting into dancing now because she was forced into dancing. And sorry, I was about to say that unfortunately they are like muted her dialogue when he picks her up. So she's like, no, I don't really want it. Like that sort of style, right? That shyness. No, I don't really want to. And he picks her up, and you see her saying the same thing in his arms. No, I don't really, but they muted it. And she's being placed onto the dance floor, and she's doing the high school vibe. Oh, I don't know. And then the dancing starts. Almost like my style of dancing in Tawny and the T-Rex. She is gyrating and vibing. She's dancing again with the probably most handsome stud there, and she's got his attention, and she's really having a lot of fun. People are around them are having a lot of fun, and good 80s dancing, because it's bad 80s dancing. Tough Turf has better 80s dancing. Valley Girl, Better Off Dead, better 80s dancing. We are now to, I don't know, one of our first days of seeing skiers ski, and the same stud wearing the skis of the corporate CEO guy gets his starter, you know, start and go, and he crashes into the ground and kind of embarrasses himself. And I think that's what's said is that they were together the night before. So she is like turning heads. She's hot and heavy. When she had got off the train and somebody said, could you hurry up, darling? That couple was at this dance party. The guy is a photographer. Because of all these athletes, people of note, I think he's there to take photographs and all this stuff. And his lady friend who wanted Susan to hurry up, she is I don't know, maybe she is a Lindsey Vonn type, where she's an active model. She's an athlete who can model. I don't know, a socialite who's an active athlete and model. Because she's there dancing, and she's also being flirtatious, and the coke energy has started. The next day, the ski happens, and we are now done with that, and we're at a lodge restaurant, and she's given her roommate the goods about her interaction with this stud. And when her friend says, okay, I gotta go check on my boyfriend from Canada, she's left alone for just a moment, and a pile of photographs is placed in front of her. And it's from this photographer. He's like, I've never seen anybody as graceful as you. These photographs are just stale toast photographs of a woman involved with her own internal struggle, okay? And he's like, you're just the most beautiful skier I've ever seen in a ski lodge. And she's like, all right, buddy. The model gal comes over. She's head to toe spandex ski suit, okay? Gorgeous. But we are going that route, and you can see I haven't even got to the point where I'm like, what is this movie about to go to? I am in this point where like, okay, is she gonna go bed from bed? But I am seeing that there's a little bit different confidence being sold to me. So I am waning off of that, but I've got this active model running around. So I don't know what's about to happen. Well, she handles this gal in an unhealthy way. I would say, I'm not trying to tee up all movies or this movie for like not being PC. I'm just recognizing what a laugh out loud riot this is of a raft ride for anybody involved. Because sometimes, don't you get these movies? It's like American Pie played well for someone right out of high school or someone in high school of a certain age. But there are movies that try that same thing, and it's like, as a high schooler, we were all creeped out by it. So I don't know, maybe if you were a 20-something or 30-something and you were single or you were on a date and you wanted to go see this movie, you might also be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Women can be friends with other women because Susan is like, all of a sudden, she's got this lens of like, I don't know, bully, aggro attitude, defensive attitude. And she's like, hey, why don't you go, hit the bricks? It's unbecoming. It's not of this character. It's not how two people should interact or do interact because we don't know enough. So they're competition for what? A guy? Okay, we already know that's unhealthy. 2, are they in competition for skiing? No. Is somebody competitive? Well, if you're an active athlete and model, you might be. If you're a concert performer, you might also be competitive. Okay, I can read into that, but I think it's unnecessary. But she's also been trained by the rudeness of people with her disability. And these are the terms I'm using just to desperately explain the base level of this movie. So she does to both of them what she wills. And we are now just with the roommate friend again. And she's trying on a new coat. So we've got some like things where it's like I'm becoming a new person. And we are entering in where I say the origins of these 90s things start happening. Because I've already talked about the party. So what I think is happening here is that this is a movie that is for a young enough audience, a hip enough audience. I think it's also saying like, well, there is a new lifestyle out there where when you're 24, you choose not to get tied down. When you're 25, you choose not to be pregnant. And when you're 30, you choose none of the above and you continue on. And if you have to date a few more people, then you are. If you continue to focus or find new focus in a hobby or interest, you're going to do it. We've got aerobics out there. We've got a zillion hobbies from Vietnam vets coming back. We've got a zillion hobbies from a generation that now has children or is now having the children of their own. So teaching and classes is all happening along with media, technology, electronics. So yeah, this photographer photographing athletes and athletic events and having a camera that's affordable so you could go out there on your vacation and do that is happening in 84. It's happening in 87. And Action Boys know it's happening in that 89, 90 with the Talk Man, the Talk Boys Kevin McAllister has in Home Alone. She is of this new lifestyle, and that's what we are experiencing. I think it could have flopped in the box office. I think it probably seemed hokey at the time. And what I mean is like wonky, silly at the time. I think it's got handsome actors, handsome actresses. I think the sport alone is attractive. I think the setting can be attractive, even though some of these things are falling. They're not really holding themselves up. But I think being that it was a flop, it got talked that way. So friend of friends are talking about it. If you rented it on VHS, if you were a young person, you possibly got a hold of it on VHS and also were just passing it along like this. If you had interest in things like wrestling, swimming, skiing, skateboarding, maybe like electronic keyboards and synthesizers, even maybe science, and even maybe if you were a person of color or a person of non-traditional partnership, if you were a person who was not male and you had interest in any of those things, you might have to pull from a movie like this. I like video games, so I watched the movie Wizard 150 times one summer. That might be somebody's story, because movies about legitimate video games with any type of glue to them were not really existent and may not be existent today. But a movie like fishing, a movie about fishing, fly fishing, a movie about a specific sport that is not an American football, American baseball, the international sports of soccer, football. These movies, there are not movies with these sporting events, or sorry, I just can't find the right word, but it's all there. It's just very rare. Having a specific interest is also going to be rare. And if you like skateboarding, snowboarding, if you like skiing, which has been much more substantial for a longer amount of time, and in 1984, you may reach for this movie to check out what's going on in the ski scenes, the ski community, and of course, this is all being digested and referenced as what I'm talking about. 90s or 80s, late 80s ski movies, ski culture, ski style. And this movie was shot in France. So it actually is really beautiful when they are up there in the mountains. And there's not a lot of like, she's not necessarily going through a lot of ski adventures herself, but she's up there with people doing it. You're going to get shots. People are having fun in the snow, all of this. There are really awkward moments with these guys continuing interacting with her, and she's, I guess, navigating if she wants to continue the romance or, you know, what she's rating these guys. It seems like I'm reading into a lot of her internal stuff. We know the actress is going through internal stuff. The acting continues to be very white toast, very plain. It's hard to read what's really going on. Is she offended? Should we be terrified for her? Is she confident? The more and more the movie goes on, she's bought this coat. There's a scene where it's like she's playing flute by herself in a corner of this warm apartment she's staying in. And it's kind of like, are you thinking about Tony? You're going to meet Tony or whatever his name is. And she's like, well, he might come by tonight. And she's like nude with just this like crop fur coat on, playing flute. And she just pulls like one shoulder down. And it's like, these things start to build up in the movie. It's maybe not a good movie, but at the end of it, you're like, and I'm not trying to say these creepy scenes or these gross scenes. I'm just saying, this is a character trying to charm us. This is a character trying to put on sexiness. This is a character who is dating. This is totally acceptable for her to be this flair. And we're supposed to maybe laugh or be charmed by that, but there's something missing in a lot of bad movies, and there's something missing here. The 90s picked up on it and maybe made it more successful, and in that success, I think we find the filth, because we're like, ew, bikini-clad gals drinking light Canadian beer, these sweaty lodges. But there is a little bit of a charm to that, because I've never been so privileged to be skiing and all of this. So like, I keep watching these things like, I don't know, I mean, I don't want women to feel uncomfortable, but I just keep thinking like, they all seem so charmed. They all seem so, I'm going to put parentheses, ideal, but it's this, the flamboyantness of having money, or money is no object. Even for Susan, it's just like, she is but on a budget. Once we say that, and she kind of stands up to herself on that budget, she just is sitting tight until the budget runs out, and she's meeting people and being invited to parties. I've been broke off my ass sitting on a public bus, and no one's inviting me to parties. No one's inventing parties to invite me to. I have just sat on a city bus or rode my bike to work. So it's a part of the Hollywood experience to be like, she's gonna be broke, but she's gonna romance her way through France and be invited to all the sweatiest, lodgiest, woodiest parties imaginable. So she continues. I'm going to keep out a lot of the creepiness. You'll have to watch to maybe make those judgments on your own. But she just continues, and everybody's sort of like rocking, everybody's got a little bit like, yeah, we're over here now, okay? And, she's having to like push people aside to get to the next interaction. It's almost like a jungle in the frozen mountains of France. Bumble, bumble, Uncle Hank's gone marina scrap. A beach view of scrap. Lots and lots of scrap. Scrap up to your elbows, or you can scrap for free. And remember, our bathrooms are the cleanest in the county. Be careful, we may have bees. Open Wednesdays. So, while she's there, she is mixing it up with some radical dudes that are a part of the ski style, ski community, ski team. There's some sort of professional ski team or competitive ski team. So that's again why I'm saying there's some reference in the 90s films. She begins to kind of ski and go on casual, like hikes or whatever, outings. And of course, just like I was talking about in the city, there seems to be a few date possibilities or whatever. And this guy who takes photographs seems to be the guy she's matching with the best. And he has a girlfriend. And I was going to make note that I don't think that the girlfriend, the actress, is credited, and I think it's Jeannie Triplehorn. Okay, just to shout out who that might be. She's in The Firm, she's in Basic Instinct, and she is in Mickey Blue Eyes. Moving forward, this movie just continues that she's just out there and on the scene. Let me just stop there. I hope that explains a lot about what is going on. There's notes about she's out there to date. So I'm putting this movie in this whatever genre, or has this trope of dating, like I said, hikes and outings. And of course it's kind of mundane at times, but the colorfulness, and they've got ski equipment and ski background. And it's not so much a stuffy movie of the past. I think with the dating element, and hey, I'm even trying to get to my point of this actress was going through something. I think that I can read the depressing element of her personal life. My first impression of this movie, like I mentioned, white toast acting, these plain takes on things. And I didn't read it as comedy. I didn't know if everything was dramatic. It was tough. And it's obvious. I didn't know the backstory. Adding that ingredient after reading an article or whatever about it, it's like, oh, okay, I see that. But I also read that there's a radicalness. What was the take where she's brushing off the photographer's girlfriend? That was odd, but she does have sparks where she's now at the ski lodge, and she does take ownership of that. And there's a moment where she gets her chance to be in a competition, and it's, again, weird. And let me just explain it, that people are just starting their race, on this decline or whatever, and they're just bombing and just going face first in the snow. And it's not supposed to be some 60s surfy, goofy thing. They're supposed to be real people, and they're just failing. They're all just poor at skiing, or these skis suck. So she's well, I wanted to be a part of it, and she's getting her chance. And she's confident at the start, the starting gate or whatever. And the photographer's there. And the photographer's been at the starting gate before. It's it's a part of the ski scene, dude, is this starting gate. It's ready, start. And she's just standing there. Now, my first viewing of this movie was I don't get, what am I missing? She is just expressionless and just expressionless. He begins to talk to her, and I'm like, what is going on in this movie? Is this an artistic Zach from Saved by the Bell, like, freeze moment? Because that's how it's playing out, like frozen. And she's just like standing there with her thoughts, and he's like, all you've got to do is be confident, you know? I don't know. And I guess her mentality is like, all I've got to do is be myself and do the best I can, which is to ski on my false cast, which is over a disability, quote unquote, a labeling, and go down this hill, which is like, it looks like, I don't know, 50 yards, if that, 25 yards. Slowly, she does it, and all she's got to do is just shuffle her way down 25 yards. And we watch her do it, and it's celebratory at the end. She did it, and everybody, loves her. His girlfriend, who I don't know, is not happy with everything, and she fell. The only one to make it across is our hero, Susan. I think, with all this said, that the 90s are pulling from this obscure movie that could be passed around as 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds socialize and talk about funny things they just saw, or movies about interests they saw. I think the colorfulness, the actual equipment, the backdrop of the French ski culture is a part of it, and then these type of things. That there is a competitive personality to this movie. There is a sexiness to this movie, and the actress, okay, is sexy of the time. She just so happens to be like, I think I don't want to be that anymore. It's this moment, this movie, it was supposed to be written, and so there's traces of that. And I'm just trying to relay that there are these traces of any of this, because I obviously think and have read into that this movie's a failure, in certain terms. It's hokey, it's silly. So that brings me to this competition is silly. So in the 90s, this competition is played out that people have to ski for the biggest charity event to save the mountain, or whatever the scenario is, or we're going to attack with skiing. These people were supposed to be skiing for 25 yards. They're supposed to be more trained than our hero Susan is, and they all flop. And that almost seems like our drunken skiers in the movies of the 90s is there. It's like they saw this, and alongside those, Annette Funicello, Frankie Avalon movies, where silliness was ensued and active California activities. In the 90s, it's like, hey, we can have beautiful people with actual sponsored equipment, looking handsome and cool like the pros, and we can do as a beer tournament, or we can do a bikini tournament, or whatever the scenario. I'd love to circle back and talk about the silliness of those 90s things. But if I hadn't mentioned it before, I think I mentioned it in an episode. Dean Cameron, star of Ski School, and I think the sequel, but also Summer School, talked at a screening of the actual, is it 70 millimeter, at Castro Theater. It was a great little moment that I think the representatives, it might have been Jesse, I think that this film hadn't been shown since its showings in like 94 or whatever, and that was really brilliant. It was like, the actual film reel hadn't been shown since it was closed up after showings in the 90s, and I was a part of that as an audience member, and it was just really great, and it was really full of energy, and Dean Cameron had a great experience. I just got a chance to really look at those movies and see one on the big screen, and it was really brilliant and really silly and stupid. It definitely leaves an impression on me, and I love having some popcorn. I love having a pizza on Friday night and watching a movie. And unfortunately, those 90s ski movies are just that. And when I had seen it, whether it was in my 20s or at the showing, it definitely makes me look at a movie like this, Just the Way You Are, see that I think there's some reference to and some origin, and there's shots that could be reimagined for the new filmmakers of the 90s. People still want to take a chance. The sport of skiing is exciting enough that if you have a budget and you're given the project to do it, no matter if it's bikini-clad people or dorks over jocks or whatever, there could be quality individuals involved and earnest intentions of even a few shots. I think a lot of those ski patrol movies, it's like, well, the skiing is in there. And there is skiing in this movie. And there is brilliant shots of French snowed mountains and mountain caps. And then you just see the elements of effect or the elements of writing get flighty at times. Or the lighting is really funny. It's definitely a movie I wanted to suggest and explore through our conversations, or at least express that I watched it, and it's just definitely conversational. And I think that's what the movie club movies is always going to circle around, is the conversation that can be had about the movie. And it doesn't have to be like harsh like the movies we've covered so far, and including Just the Way You Are. I wanted to cap what's going on at the end of the movie. It's definitely worth checking out. I didn't want to overdo it with like a movie recap about this movie. I want you to find out if you want to check out that movie or not. You can find out what happens to our hero Susan. I think she, ends up on top of things. In the conversation of the movie club movies, we leave her. She is flying above all of this in brightly colored, really cool looking 80s hot air balloons. It's almost a trope of movie podcasts to say that everybody looks alike and a lot of the guys look alike. And actually, with the 80s movies, there are a lot of like pairings. Here, other podcasts, ABZ, WHM, definitely. What is Prime is the movie Drop Zone does this. And both those podcasts covered that movie, and both those podcasts noticed and could reference who these people are. But it's definitely like on both sides of the law, the characters look similar. And I think Fast and Furious, they did it, and off the top of my head, I don't know which of those series they do it, maybe number 8, where everybody does look the same. Drop Zones on that. In this movie also, it's like the operator guy who's from Last Starfighter, he looks, and American Werewolf in London, he looks like the photographer guy. The photographer guy's lady friend kind of looks like Susan's apartment roommate. We don't really catch up with really their backstory. We don't really need it. It was tough to separate who's who. I didn't really know what she was up to with these guys. But I wanted to mention movies that I felt like are similar to this one. It's obvious the ski movies, and I even wanted to just clearly list if I could. So Ski School is from 1991. It has a sequel, Ski School 2. Dean Cameron is in both of those. And then I do know that there's one called Ski Patrol. I also want to mention Aspen Extreme is another one. Some of these were just on the HBO channels, right? Does anybody else agree with me? And isn't that sometimes our experience with movies is like, I feel like Aspen is Extreme. That was just on all the time. All the time. I'm almost like triggered by that, just relaying that, because it's like, I don't want to have access to that movie. I wanted to watch, I think Fraggle Rock was probably what I would have been accessing. Movies like Ski School, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Napoleon Dynamite, Biodome, Escape from New York is a good one too. Were these movies on maybe too much and you got them? I mean, I'm also mentioning things that possibly totally catch your eye and you rent and your friend rents. But you know what I'm talking about, where it's like, why the hell would I watch Aspen Extreme? Except that it was one of those things on too much. I also want to mention that this movie is a little bit sleazy in that what the heck is going on at this lodge? But that might be sleazy in post 2020 terms. But I think at the same time it's trying to be romantic, just like Running Scared is trying to be hip and friendly. I wanted to mention it is a little bit like Blame It on Rio. It is as bland as like a Chuck Norris movie at times, and I had been listening to some podcasts with ABZ, and they will definitely highlight that like Chuck Norris, is very dry delivery, doesn't sometimes pick up on the flair of being a lead actor in a Hollywood movie. It's like then I checked out this movie and I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is a female Chuck Norris, and after reading about what she was going through, I don't want to hold myself to that, but just the delivery of things. So I'm just adding what other movies might be a part of that. How Did This Get Made covered a sleazy movie, but also an 80s sort of hip movie called A Night in Heaven. It's even got some cool music. The music in this, oh my gosh, I didn't even get the cover. The music in this is really good, especially when they get into the dancing scene. It is funny because like the first 3 sort of score based music, it reminded me of like hospital waiting room music or whatever. But then again, it's a very odd movie, makes some odd choices and they're contrasting choices, but they start dancing and actual 80s music plays. This movie outright also reminded me of Looking for Mr. Goodbar. That stars Diane Keaton. It is a really well done movie. It is a frightening movie. Now is not the time for me to dive into such a... What also got me comparing these two movies was that she is exploring dating, but she also is like a single female and is like untraditional for the time. She should be finding commitment, but she's not. She's dating and she's okay with that. And as us as an audience is okay with that also. But it's a very similar subject matter, similar time period, maybe also a darker movie, Caution. Desperately Seeking Susan. I think I'm also just trying to say there's some dating involved. There's also, we already mentioned a movie, Side Out. It's a movie, and even Night in Heaven is about some specific interests, if nothing else. There's a lot of controversial stuff in these movies I'm listing. A few of them still have, much like Side Out, where it's a specialized interest. What about Edward Scissorhands? He's sort of a barber or hairstylist. There's not a lot of movies that even just have a spotlight on such a character. Even Edward Scissorhands is sort of a illustrative or like even fantasy. It might look like Edward Scissorhands just in base form, as A Night in Heaven looks like adult dancing or exotic dancing. It's about a specific interest. I mean, even Dirty Dancing is about a specific interest, and she's not really supposed to be doing what she's doing. At the same time, she's not hurting anybody, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on such a movie, and we'll keep doing this where we sort of plug in something specialized, something different. I just thought this is a great surprise, a great gem, and I'm seeing that those 90s movies reference a lot of aspects of this movie. The movie is Just the Way You Are, 1984. It stars KRISTY McNichol. I'll let you look up everybody else because I want to give respect to her and the project that she worked on. Also, look us up. Hashtag TMCMS, the Movie Club Movies Podcast. And I really want to hear your comments. Smash that message button. Hashtag us out there in the real world. TMCMS, the Movie Club Movies Podcast. Please be kind. Please rewind. I found it. There's a ticket for a gate. I got to the gate. There ain't no gate. I'm leaving this message. If you get this, I plan to make my way across this body of water back to San Dimas neighborhood. Beep. Message was left in 1989. Agent Henderson from TMCMS Investigation has picked up on this voicemail. It was located in their former neighborhood that was annihilated during the comet. Not much remains of the neighborhood except a few laser discs. Message left by Regina and Samantha's father, who is stationed somewhere in Bali or Southeast Asia. Seems like he's made his way back to the States. Moving forward, the podcast and TMCMs will be dedicated as soon as possible. Stay tuned to find out more.